Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Welcome to today's reading from Sri Chaitanya Charitamarita, Adi Lila, chapter 16, verse 46. We'll be beginning from Mukam Karoti Vachalam Pangum Langhate Kirim Yat Kripatamham Vande Shri Gurum Dinatarinam Paramananda Madhavam Sri Chaitanya Ishwaram Hari Om Tat Sat. So yesterday we were hearing how Keshav Kashmiri, the Brahmin scholar from Kashmir, he was composing 100 verses on Ganges within an hour, and how Mahaprabhu, he analyzed one of his verses by remembering it while hearing it, and how he got surprised at how Mahaprabhu is so advanced in Sanskrit grammar. So let us continue from there onwards. So Mahaprabhu is going to beat the ego of Keshav Kashmiri now. Vipra kahe shloke nahi doshera abhas upa alankar guna kichu anupras. The Brahmin replied, there is no tinge of fault in that verse, rather it has the good qualities of similes and alliteration. Purport: in the last line of the verse quoted by Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, the letter Bha is repeated many times, as in the word Bhavani, Bhartur, Vibhavati, Adbhut. Such repetition is called Anupras or alliteration. The words Lakshmir Eva and Vishnosh Charana Kamalotpatti are instances of Upma Alankar, for they exhibit metaphorical beauty. The Ganges is water and Lakshmi is the goddess of fortune. Since water and person are not actually similar, the comparison is metaphorical. Verse 47, Prabhu kahena kahi yadi na karah rosha kah tumar e shloke kiba ache dosha. The Lord said, my dear sir, I may say something to you, but if you will not become angry, can you explain the faults in this verse? Verse number 48. Pratibhar kavya tomar devata santoshe bhal mate vicharile jani guna doshe. There is no doubt that your poetry is full of ingenuity, and certainly it has satisfied the Supreme Lord. Yet if we scrutinizingly consider it, we can find both good qualities and faults. Verse 49. Tate bhal kari shloke karah vichar kavi kahe ye kahile se ved sar. The Lord concluded, now therefore let us carefully scrutinize this verse. Purport: the poet replied, yes, the verse you have recited is perfectly correct. Verse 50. Vyakaraniya tumi nahi pad alankar tumi ki janibe e kavitvere sar. You are an ordinary student of grammar. What do you know about literary embellishments? You cannot review this poetry because you do not know anything about it. Purport: Keshav Kashmiri first wanted to bluff Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu by saying that since he was not an advanced student in literary style, he could not review a verse full of metaphors and literary ornaments. This argument has some basis in fact. Unless one is a medical man, he cannot criticize a medical man, and unless one is a lawyer, he cannot criticize a lawyer. Therefore, Keshav Kashmiri first depreciated the Lord's position, because Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was to the champion a student of grammar. How could he dare criticize a great poet like him? Lord Chaitanya therefore criticized the poet in a different way. He said that although he was certainly not advanced in literary career, he had heard from others how to criticize such poetry, and as a Shrutidhar possessing a complete memory, he could understand the process for such a review. Verse 51. Prabhu kahena ataiva puchiye tomare vichariya guna dosha bhujaha amare. Taking a humble position, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said, because I am not on your level, I have asked you to teach me by explaining the faults and good qualities in your poetry. Verse 52. Nahi padi alankar kariyachi shravan tate e shloke dekhi bahudosh guna. Certainly, I have not studied the art of literary embellishments, but I have heard about it from higher circles, and thus I can review this verse and find in it many faults and many good qualities. Purport: the statement Kariyachi Shravana, I have heard it is very important in the sense that hearing is more important than directly studying or perceiving. If one is expert in hearing and hears from the right source, his knowledge is immediately perfect. This process is called Shrota Pantha, or the acquisition of knowledge by hearing from authorities. All Vedic knowledge is based on the principle that one must approach a bona fide spiritual master and hear from him the authoritative statements of the Vedas. It is not necessary for one to be a highly polished literary man to receive knowledge. To receive perfect knowledge from a perfect person, one must be expert in hearing. This is called the descending process of deductive knowledge, or Avaroha Pantha. Verse 53, Kavi kahe kaha dekhi kaun guna dosha, Prabhu kahe na kahi shuna na kariha rosha. The poet said, all right, let me see what good qualities and faults you have found. The Lord replied, let me speak and please hear me without becoming angry. This was the one-line purport. Verse 54, Pancha dosha aish loke pancha alankar krame ami kahi shuna karaha vichar. My dear sir, in this verse there are 5 faults and 5 literary ornaments. I shall state them one after another. Kindly hear me and then give me your judgment. Purport: in the verse beginning with Mahatvam Gangayaha, there are 5 literary ornaments and 5 examples of faulty composition. There are 2 examples of the fault called Avimrishta Vidheyamsha, and 1 example of each of the faults, Viruddhamati, Punar Ukti and Bhagna Krama. Vimrishat means clean and Vidheyamsha means predicate. It is a general rule of composition to establish a subject first and then give its predicate. For example, according to Sanskrit grammar, if one says, this man is learned, his composition is in order. But if one says, learned is the man, the composition is not in the order. Such flaw is called Avimrishta Vidheyamsha Dosha, or the fault of unclean composition. The subject matter to be known of the verse is the glorification of the Ganges, and therefore the word idam, this, or what is known, should have been placed before instead of after the glorification. The subject matter clearly known should be placed before the unknown, so that its meaning will not be misconstrued. The second instant of Avimrisht Vidheyamsha dosh occurs in the word Dvitiya, Sri Lakshmi Iva. In this composition, the word Dvitiya, the second, is Vidheya or unknown. Placing the unknown first to make the compound word Dvitiya, Sri Lakshmi, is another fault. The words Dvitiya Sri Lakshmi Iva were intended to compare the Ganges to the goddess of fortune, but because of this fault, the meaning of the compound word was bewildering. The third fault is that Viruddhamati, or contradictory conception, in the words Bhavani Bharatu. The word Bhavani refers to the wife of Bhava, Lord Shiva, but since Bhavani is already known as the wife of Lord Shiva, to add the word Bharata, husband, thus forming a compound meaning the husband of the wife of Lord Shiva, is contradictory, for thus it appears as if the wife of Lord Shiva had another husband. The fourth fault is Punaryukti, or redundancy, which occurs when the verb Vibhavati, that is the flourishes, which should have ended the composition, is further qualified by the unnecessary adjective Adbhut Guna, endowed with wonderful qualities. The fifth fault is Bhagna Krama, which means broken order. In the first, third and fourth lines there is Anupras, or alliteration, created by the sounds Tha, Ra and Bha, but in the second line there is no such Anupras, and therefore the order is broken. Verse 55. Avimrishta vidheyamsha dui thani chena viruddhamati bhagna krama punar ata dosha tina. In this verse, the fault of avimrishta vidheyamsha occurs twice, and the faults of viruddhamati and bhagna krama and punar ata occurs once each. Verse 56. Gangar Mahatva Shloke Mool Vidheya Idam Shabde Anuvad Pache Avidheya. The glorification of the Ganges Mahatvam Gangaya is the principal unknown subject matter in this verse, and the known subject matter is indicated by the word idam, which has been placed after the unknown. Verse 57. Vidheya Age Kahi Pache Kahile Anuvad Elagi Shlokera Artha Kariyache Patha. Because you have placed the unknown subject at the end and that which is unknown at the beginning, the composition is faulty and the meaning of the words has become doubtful. Verse 58. Anuvadam anuktvaiva navidheyam udiriyet nahi alabdhaspadam kinchit kutrachit pratisthati. Without first mentioning what is unknown, and one should not introduce the unknown, for that which has no solid basis can never be established anywhere. Purport. This is a verse from Ekadashi Tattva. Verse 59. Dvitya Shri Lakshmi Ihan Dvitya Tva Vidheya Samase Gauna Haila Shabdarth Gela Kshaya. In the word Dvitya Shri Lakshmi, a second all-opulent goddess of fortune, the quality of being a second Lakshmi is the unknown. In making this compound word, the meaning became secondary and the originally intended meaning was lost. Verse 60. Dvitiya Shabda Vidheya Taha Padela Samase Lakshmira Samata Artha Karila Vinashe. Because the word Dvitiya, that's the second, is the unknown, in its combination in this compound word, the intended meaning of equality with Lakshmi is lost. Verse 61. Avimrishita vidheyamsha e doshera nam ar ek dosha ache shuna savdhan. Not only is there the fault avimrishta vidheyamsha, but there is also another fault which I shall point out to you. Kindly hear me with great attention. Verse 62. Bhavani bhartri shabd dile paya santosha viruddha mati krit nam e mahadosh. There is another great fault. You have arranged the word Bhavani Bhatri to your great satisfaction, but this betrays the fault of contradiction. Verse 63. Bhavani Shabde Kahe Mahadevira Grihini Tandra Bharta Kahile Dvitiya Bharta Jani. The word Bhavani means the wife of Lord Shiva, but when we mention her husband, one might conclude that she has another husband. Verse 64. Shiva Patnira Bharta Iha Shunite Viruddha Mati Krit Shabd Shastre Nahe Shuddha. It is contradictory to hear that Lord Shiva's wife has another husband. The use of such words in literature creates the fault called Viruddha Mati Krit. Verse 65. Brahmana Patnira Bhartar Haste Dehadana Shabd Sunite Hayadvitiya Bharta Gyan. If someone says, place this charity in the hand of the husband of the wife of the Brahman, when we hear these contradictory words, we immediately understand that the Brahman's wife has another husband. Verse 66. Vibhavati Kriyaya Vakya Sangas Punaha Visheshana Adbhuta Guna E Punar Ata Dushana. The statement by the word Vibhavati flourishes is complete. Qualifying it with the adjective Adbhut Guna, that is wonderful qualities, creates the fault of redundancy. Verse 67. Teen Pade Anuprasa Dekhi Anupam Ek Pade Nahi E Dosha Bhagna Krama. The There is extraordinary alliteration in 3 lines of the verse, but in 1 line there is no such alliteration. This is the fault of deviation. Verse 68. यद्यपि ए श्लोके आचे पंच अलंकार ए पंच दोषे श्लोक कैला चक्रहार. Although there are 5 literary ornaments decorating this verse, the entire verse has been spoiled by these 5 most faulty presentations. Verse 69. Dasha alankara yadi eka shloka haya eka doshe sabba alankara haya kshaya. If there are 10 literary ornaments in a verse but even one faulty expression, the entire verse is nullified. Verse 70. Sundar sharir yache bhushane bhushit ek shweta kushthe yache kare vigita. One's beautiful body may be decorated with jewels, but one spot of white leprosy makes the entire body abominable. Purport: the great sage Bharat Muni, an authority on poetic metaphor, has given his opinion in this connection as follows. Verse 71. Rasalankar vat kavyam doshi yakched vibhushitam syad vapuh sundaram api shvitre naikena durbhagam. As one's body, although well decorated with ornaments, is made unfortunate by even one spot of white leprosy, so an entire poem is made useless by a fault despite alliteration, similes, and metaphors. Verse 72. Pancha alankarera ebe sunaha Shunaha vichar dui shabdalankar teen arth alankar. Now here are the descriptions of the 5 literary embellishments. There are 2 ornaments of sound and 3 ornaments of meanings. Verse 73. Shabdalankar teen pade ache anupras Lakshmi Shri Lakshmi Shabde Punar Uktavad Abhas. There is a sound ornament of alliteration in 3 lines, and in the combination of the words Shri and Lakshmi, there is an ornament of tinge of redundancy. Verse 74. Prathama Charane Pancha Karera Panti Tritiya Charane Haya Pancha Refa Sthiti. In the arrangement of the first line, the letter Ta occurs 5 times, and the arrangements of the third line repeats the letter Ra 5 times. Verse 75. Chaturth charane chari bha abha kara prakash atev shabdalankar anuprasa. In the 4th line, the letter bha occurs 4 times. This arrangement of alliteration is a pleasing ornamental use of sounds. Verse 76. Shri shabde Lakshmi shabde eka vastu ukta punar ukta praya bhase nahe punar ukta. Although the words Shri and Lakshmi convey the same meaning and are therefore almost redundant, they are nevertheless not redundant. Verse 77. Shri Yukta Lakshmi Arthe Arthera Vibheda Punar Uktavad Abhas Shabda Lankar Bheda, describing Lakshmi as the possessed of Shri, which is the opulence, offers a difference in a meaning with tinge of repetition. This is the 2nd ornamental use of words. Okay, so we will continue from here onwards next time. Thank you for joining. Hari Om Tat Sat. Hare Krishna.